Let's talk about the need to put our life on a solid basis so that we are not shaken up by the external conditions of what happens in the world. There is such a solid foundation that you can build your life on. The current crisis, which has shaken the lives of so many people, shows that there are some very significant dents in human thinking. An external event has the power to really shake somebody's life, to the point that there have been also cases of people who have committed suicide due to the stress of the current situation. Maslow's pyramid is the way that most people think today. I am going to argue that a totally different paradigm of thinking is necessary. According to Maslow, and this has been widely accepted in psychology and just in thinking in the past century, the foundation of our life are physiological needs, such as of shelter and food. Then, once you satisfy those needs, you have your safety needs, such as employment, health, and property. Then you go to love and belonging, such as family, then esteem, and at the top of the pyramid is self-actualization. When they have to solve a big problem, today, most people focus on the external aspects to the situation. I know this may sound abstract, but it is relevant to everything we do in the world. Because the world has learned to look from outside in, that is, the external defines the internal, which means that if I have favorable external circumstances, then the internal will be okay and will be thriving, which is what Maslow's pyramid declares and professes. Actually, it's the opposite, how the internal defines the external. It's a totally different view of life that puts everything upside down. The immaterial side of us wants to be happy, wants to feel fulfilled, wants to do something that feels worthwhile, meaningful, enjoyable, wants to enjoy life, to love and be surrounded by people who love us, to be inspired, to lead an interesting life, to be vital, to be creative, to enjoy the day. And a large part of the day is taken by work. So we want to do something that we are passionate about, that we truly enjoy. And above all, we want to feel peaceful deep inside and just inherently joyful. That is the true happiness. As we already said, Maslow pyramid implies that if you eat, drink, and have sex, and have a family, and have a job, and a place of society, then you will be happy. Maybe you still believe this, but if you have lived for a while, you know, or you have observed it in other people, that many people seem to have those things and they're still not happy. So life itself shows that these things don't bring true happiness. The current situation faces us with what this pyramid does not talk about. It is that things are constantly happening, whether you like it or not, and there really isn't such thing as safety. There is fear of the illness, of getting sick, but at the same time, There is fear that if we take all the precautions, then the economy is in trouble, and financially you're in trouble. Ultimately, what are those fears rooted in? They're rooted in the fundamental primal fear of death. Like a scary, ugly, and bad word, which is actually part of the pathology of our current way of thinking. I propose that we have a pyramid in which the foundation is the acceptance of reality as it is. And the reality as it is a constant flow and a constant flux. Therefore, it is marked by constant death. This is not gonna be morbid, I promise. Just hear me out. Not just death of a person, but I'm talking about death of beliefs, death of certain circumstances. Today, let's say the unemployment rate is 4%, tomorrow is 12%, right? The interest rate is changing, everything is changing. Everything is in a constant flux. Today we have this in a way a catch-22 situation, because people cannot choose between the fear of the illness and taking precautions, and on the other hand, taking care of the economy. So there are two big fears and people are going back and forth. So at the basis of the life that we want to build, there has to be an acceptance of death as something natural. Death is something that happens to every material form, whether thought, as I said, thought, person, anything, idea, and so on. It is the only one absolute sure thing in this life. Nothing else is really for sure. Nothing else can be truly guaranteed. It is not for sure whether you will get married, whether you will find the love of your life, buy a Porsche, earn $1 million, get a great job, accomplish all your dream, even be able to have a child, even if you want to, whether your children are going to be healthy, happy, whether you'll be able to get your great education. There's literally no guarantee for anything, because anything, no matter how it looks today, tomorrow it can change. So actually death means change. So you have to accept change. And I believe that the reason people were so afraid of change is because change is a certain death. We have come to associate death only with humans, with living beings, animals, but anything coming to an end, changing, means that it has experienced death. Therefore, the basis of the healthy life we want to build should be rooted in an acceptance of death, because that acceptance greatly eliminates the fear. Fear is much bigger when you reject something and deny it. Now you remember that I mentioned the two sides to a human being, the animalistic, material, and immaterial one. The materialistic side of man is reflected in the body, the five senses, and so on. And the immaterial side of man is the mind, through which the human being has access to other worlds, imagination, creativity, ideas. Depending on your beliefs, and by beliefs I mean what you have experienced for yourself, through the mind you might have access to different realms of existence, higher realms, spiritual realms, or you can just call it imagination. Everybody has experienced visions and images that do not belong to the material sphere. Everybody has had thoughts. Everybody has had certain thoughts that are more noble and lofty, and feelings of more noble feelings such as love and compassion, even if for small moments. So no matter what your beliefs are or philosophy about life, there is no doubt that through the mind you have experiences of a reality that is different from the reality of the body, of the purely material reality. So the second tenet of this pyramid is to accept these two parts of the human being. If you accept that the imagination, the creativity, the noble ideas are energies that cannot die, that the knowledge somehow survives the body, then you identify with the immaterial aspect of yourself, and then you are in a way become immortal, because you accept that the body will die, but something precious will go on. Some people have experience and knowledge of the soul that they experience death just as a threshold, and they have even seen in visualizations or in regressions and so on, they have seen the soul traveling through different lifetimes. Or if you haven't had experience of that, you may have had the feeling that some noble idea that you have fallen in love with, that idea will live on after you, or something that you commit your life to, a cause, a social cause, or something else. Your work is not gonna just die, it will continue on in the people after you. If the body is the most important thing for you, then the knowledge of death will be subconscious in your mind at all times, and will overcome the psyche and will make you fearful of anything, of any external factor. Earthquake, economic crisis, illness, and so on. If you put the importance here, you are no longer so dependent on the external factors, good or bad, in order to feel happy and fulfilled. Because there is meaning that is within you. And that doesn't depend so much on whether you have had gourmet food that day, whether you have had sex, whether you have a great social status. If you believe that the mind is stronger than the body, and you look inside to discover your mind, and you begin to realize the power of the mind, then your fear will be nullified, because you can dedicate your life to a great noble cause or idea. And then you have a different basis of life for your life than the material basis, where you identify with with your body, which would imply that your whole life, in order to achieve self-actualization, you need to have your physical needs satisfied. You need to have good conditions in order to be happy. So the basis for the pyramid that I propose is to accept death, to think about death. As Steve Jobs said during the 2005 commencement at Stanford University, where I had the privilege to be as a graduating student from Stanford at that time. He had his cancer diagnosis, and doctors told him that he only has 3 months to live. So every morning he would wake up and he would say, if today was the last day of my life, would I be doing what I'm doing? So death really puts a perspective on your life, actually. Death is also a blessing in disguise, because if everything was always the same, then first of all, there will be no growth, and second, there will be no urgency to do things. You would always postpone them until tomorrow. Death gives an urgency to do things in the world. The time is precious. Death makes life precious, because if there was no death, life will be endless and we wouldn't appreciate it, right? Because there's always tomorrow. Accept that the body is a vessel in the material world, but that there are higher things to which your life is dedicated. And if you're a spiritual person, you can even experience yourself as the silent witness to everything that happens. And then before you can build, this is another thing that's missing from Maslow. Maslow's pyramid implies that everything is good. All the conditions are beneficial. You know very well that life is complicated, that everybody has so much crap that they have dealt with, and some people have had humongous amounts of issues and problems, drinking parents, sexual abuse, being LGBT and being constantly prejudiced, being prejudiced in society, drugs, abandonment, violence of any kind, just so many different things. So as a matter of fact, unlike that pyramid, it is actually most likely that you have a lot of baggage to deal with. So instead of building, first you would have to demolish. What do you have to demolish? Old family baggage. I'll put the word karma or baggage. Unhealthy psychological beliefs, unhealthy feelings. I say family because it usually runs in the family and you inherit it. Of course, it's also your own. But things like, again, this is very important for being happy in life and finding a job you love, even though it seems far away. It's important because you have to build your life on a healthy foundation. Otherwise, sooner or later, this will erode you. Even if you find a job you like and so on, you will have problems with colleagues, if you have problems unresolved inside of you, like feelings like guilt, shame, envy. You have not forgiven somebody. All of these things you will project on other people. So yes, you can build something even if you haven't dealt with it, but sooner or later this will erode. It's not a healthy foundation. So you have to go in and face these things before you can go out and actually build. And actually, as you can see, this is also putting a certain kind of death to the old patterns. Death to the old patterns in the family. Old patterns of thought, old patterns of beliefs that are limiting you. So these steps is also marked by death. As you can see, death is what makes transformation and getting on a new level possible. And let's say that you do heal all of these. Obviously, they don't come one after the other neatly. Things in life happen concurrently in a way, and many people are already in certain situation. But this is helpful to be seen in schematically. Let's say that you have healed. Then you start building based on asking yourself, who am I? And then you start to experiment, to create, and to follow your bliss. As you can see, in order to find what you're really passionate about and how you can be really fulfilled, this entails an amount of risk, big amount of risk from the point of view of the body. But actually, if you take it from this point of view, it might actually, this is something exciting, something new. Let's try something new. Let's try to go forward, better myself. Let me be vital and creative. So you're focusing on the excitement part of it, on the growing part of it, and exciting, rather than on the risk. So you're focusing on this rather than on this. It might not be easy. You may still feel some fear from the body, which is natural, but this has to, on the scales, this has to go heavier. The desire to grow. And so you experiment, you create something. There is another death because you make mistakes, so-called mistakes, right? Mistakes, and then there's learning. And you jump to the next level. So there's another death here, and so on. And the point here is that the end point is not important, because you're feeling joyful all along the way. Not like in the Maslow pyramid that you have to have this and this and this and this and this until you're happy in the end. No, you are constantly happy already here by identifying with something higher that gives you joy and purpose in life. And you're accepting the nature of reality. And cleansing family stuff and old patterns is painful, but it's also extremely joyful because you're growing. So you have to embrace growing, and there's tremendous joy in all of this. So the end point here is actually perhaps, the material death in this life, and how far you have, because this is endless. You can endlessly grow. Look at things in this way. I will believe that you will start building your life in a totally different way. It will take a long time and is not as clean as neat as 5-minute talk, but it's something everybody can start to do regardless of what the situation they're in. And we can talk much more in another video about practical exercises to accomplish all of these goals. I hope this had been helpful and illuminating in some way, and thank you so much for listening. I will see you soon.